Okay, I'm Joe Smith. I'm a horticulture technician. I've been here close to 6 years now, so I get a lot of calls. I take probably the majority of calls when people call in or email and things like that. And this is probably one of the hot topics, and I can tell by the size of the class that this is one of the concerns that a lot of gardeners have in our area is problems with wildlife. So that's why I decided to do this class. And I did one several years ago, but I kind of updated it and added a few things to it, and just more. A lot of this is from personal experience too. And David and I will kind of give our take on this as far as different methods that we've used, methods that the university and other universities recommend using. And the thing to take in mind, as David kind of touched on also, is a lot of these strategies or methods may work for a little while, but a lot of times they're not long-term. So a lot of times you have to switch methods up and different things just to, as the animals adapt to the particular whatever method you're using, they will figure it out. They're not, they're not as dumb as you would think. So we'll kind of just go into that. So we've just come together with a lot of different methods in this PowerPoint to show you ways that hopefully help you. So mainly species that we're going to cover here, white-tailed deer, for example, the eastern cottontail rabbit, which is common in our area, eastern gray squirrel, the mole, eastern mole, and woodpeckers / sapsuckers. So these are some of the main ones we'll kind of cover in this. These are the majority of the ones that I get a lot of calls on. The woodchuck or the groundhog is another one that you may get a lot of damage with, especially if you have outbuildings and things around your property. I get calls. So the first one we'll start out, and this is probably the biggest complaint that I get every single year. This year it seems like it's been really bad, and I don't know if that's coupled with the cicada emergence that we had earlier this year, but we've had a lot of calls on moles, and moles have been very active this year. A lot of times people say, I've got, must be hundreds of moles in my, on my property. I have a half-acre lot, but it's covered. The thing is, moles can do a lot of damage very quickly. Usually there's, 1 to 2 moles or so per acre. It all depends. This year, I mean, honestly, on my property, I got 1.5 acres, and I think I've got more than that, really. I mean, I know they do a lot of damage, and I've caught quite a few this year, too. So, and I'm still seeing damage. It's picked up more into the fall, and usually you'll see that springtime, there'll be a lot of activity when earthworms are up and other insect larvae are in the ground and up higher. Usually in the summer, a lot of times, as it gets drier, some of the earthworms and things go lower. A lot of times you won't see as much activity from the moles. They may be down deeper. But soon as fall, cooler temperatures go, those insects start coming up higher in the ground with the moisture, then you'll start seeing more activity. Just give you some of the facts and on the behavior of them. This is what a diagram shows what a mole colony or what have you looks like. Usually you have a feeding run or a runway, what they call, and that's what most of us see where you're walking through your yard and you see these raised areas. You usually sometimes see these big hills. I always call them the volcanoes because they're just large areas, and if you've ever gone through mowing, you hit these and big piles of dust fly up. So these are usually where they expel all their extra dirt from some of the deeper tunneling. So they have a nesting chamber or a nesting area down usually several, maybe a foot or so under the ground. That's usually where they spend a lot of their time during the cold weather. If they're not active, if the ground's frozen, they'll usually retreat to those areas and also raise their young in those areas also. There's other tunnels that are usually a little bit, deeper also, but the feeding runways are what does the most damage that we see. These are always, crisscross the yard and do the most damage. I mean, they can be dangerous too. You can turn an ankle, in one of them if you're not careful. So, and like I said, use the population density. They say 2 to 3. I've seen 2 to 3 moles per acre, 1 to 2 moles per acre, but that is, I think this year that seems a little bit conservative from what I've seen in the calls that I've got this year. They do a lot of their feeding in the morning and evening hours. That's a good time to watch for activity. If you're wanting to see, it's a good idea to just kind of monitor the whole area and look for the freshest runways, the ones that look like the dirt's freshest, where it's turned up. That's what you want to look for. That's where you want to set your traps. Kind of, what's a vole versus a mole? Well, a vole is kind of like a field mouse. And they make, they also do a lot of damage to turf, and they eat and feed on, they actually girdle the bark around a lot of fruit trees, brambles like blackberries, raspberries, and things like that, and some ornamentals. But they do a lot of their damage in the wintertime when they're feeding on these bark and soft areas of plant life. The vole it won't raise up nearly as much and damage the turf as much, but you still will be able to see these, and usually a little bit smaller as far as in the diameter.
If your property is close to a woods, you're going to see voles, and voles have a little bit shorter tail than a mouse, and there's been a lot of damage created by voles. And out at the Nature Center, we've grown potatoes, put potatoes in the ground, and we've put sweet potatoes in the ground, and the voles have gotten into both of those crops and just devastated. And we didn't see any evidence above ground, but when we went to dig them, we had just gigantic holes in the potatoes and in the sweet potatoes. They're damaging.
Yes, a lot of damage, and I was kind of surprised when we saw that much damage on the sweet potatoes that we had out there. But yeah, I mean, they will girdle a fruit tree. A large array of traps, and if you go into any garden center, big box store, anything like that, you'll see a lot of these different traps. I brought some of mine here. This probably is my favorite. This is called an easy set. And as you can see, I've used this a lot, and I actually had to paint it up and clean it up a little bit before I brought it in here because it looked horrible. So the reason I painted, I'll tell this little story on myself. The reason I paint the top of it a bright color is because I've actually run over these with my mower. So, forgetting where I had them. So that's why I do that. This one I recommend to a lot of people that don't have a lot of strength in their hands, for example. This one you simply put in the ground, and then you step on this top area here, it pushes it down, automatically sets the trap. And then when you actually have something in it, when a mole comes through and it's run, will trigger this, and it will pop up into this position. So if it's in the ground, it'll pop up like this, and that way you know you've got a mole in there. And these are really effective. It kills the mole immediately. It's spring-loaded. It's pretty strong. But the thing about this is a lot of people, I have older people call in that don't have the strength in their hands to actually set a trap. So this one works really well with them.
Who made that one? Because I just was given a compact one, which is a whole lot like that.
Yeah, there's several different manufacturers. I think this one was WireTech was the company that makes these. There's several that have this design that make this now. Yeah, there's a plastic one made. It's similar to this. I tried it out. The plastic one wasn't nearly as sturdy as the metal one. That's why I kind of like this one. Another trap is this one. You'll see this one is harpoon style, which you'll see. This one is the one I say people have trouble getting it set because it will take a little bit of strength to pull that back. But this is how you set it. This lever here, and then that's how it triggers. So. This one, I had decent luck with this one, but like I said, for some reason, this one seems most effective to me, and I like just the way it's easy to set, and you can reset it really quickly. A good thing, too, also, as I brought these, I recently went out and bought, you can buy these at any hardware store or whatever, but set these up where you have your trap set. That way, when you go out and get ready to mow, it's a reminder, and you don't do what I did and run over them. The thing to do with them is you check them I check mine every day and I usually go out in the morning, see if I had any activity during the evening or anything. And I usually leave them to that night. And in the evening, if I haven't caught one or I don't see any activity, I kind of look around and see if there's any new runs or anything like that. I'll step those runs down and reset the trap. So that's usually how I do it. This is another type of trap. This one works, but it's very, very dangerous. It actually requires this set of tools to set it. And I won't even set it in here because it's actually very dangerous. But this, you get the idea, this is how it basically sets. This little lever comes here, and it will trigger it. But this one, you can lose a finger on this one, honestly. This one is a little bit concerning. That's why I don't recommend it as much. I've used it, and I have good luck. The only other thing with this also is you have to actually dig a little hole down with a trowel to actually set this down in, and you're disturbing the ground a little bit more, and I think they kind of sense that sometimes, or they get your scent from that. And mentioning that, this is something that I sometimes use after I set the trap. This is just like a scent killer you can get at any hunting, Dick's Sporting Goods or whatever. And I usually spray this over my traps and everything after I set them. I don't know, it seems like it works for me. A lot of people say it doesn't, or wear gloves, obviously, something like that. I've found it seems like it helps when I'm setting traps, so that's why I kind of use it. Kind of move on. There's all matter of different types of baits that you'll see out there, and there's a lot of the old, I call wives' tales, or just myths. Chewing gum, for example, a lot of people swear it's got to be juicy fruit, and not spearmint, not Wrigley spearmint. It's got to be juicy fruit. But use that, put that down in the runs, and they will consume that and die. Well, moles they're insectivores, so they eat insects, so they're not going to really mess with chewing gum.
When you're going to war, you're going to be more effective if you know your enemy's weaknesses. And one of the biggest take-homes there is moles are carnivorous. They don't eat plant matter. They don't eat poisoned peanuts. They don't eat any of that other stuff that you put in their holes. They eat earthworms. That's the major part of their diet. And one of the good things that they do is they eat Japanese beetle grubs and a lot of grubs in the soil as well. That's a positive thing that moles do. But they don't eat vegetable matter. Cone-shaped canister, and you actually use the end of it to push down into the run, and then pop one of your peanuts out and put down in the hole. That's the method behind that. You'll also see these sonic spikes, or these thumpers or whatever. That is actually not really proven to be that effective. A lot of studies show that these aren't effective, or if they are, they're very limited.
I went that route a couple years ago, and it worked for a year. It seemed to work.
Yeah, some people even, I've heard recommendations of these little pinwheels, spinners, that you see you can put out in the garden, that makes enough disturbance and vibration on the ground to kind of scare them. I haven't had a whole lot of luck with either one of these. I've tried a lot of this stuff. One product here there has been studies done, and there has been some success with it, is the mole killer, these little gummy worms, which have a type of poison in them. This is what these products here are. You can usually buy these. They have these little this one has 12 gummy worms in it. Gives the instructions on the back how to poke. Usually comes with a set of gloves, and the one set that I got one time even came with the little flags, so you could put up, so you knew where you put your poison worms. But the thing to note with these is be kind of careful if you have domesticated animals. If they're known to dig and get after things, you don't want necessarily, or you don't want to poison your neighbor's animals or yours. So just be careful if you do use these. And I've tried these. I've had very limited success with them. Then I've heard other people that have had really good success with them. So for me, I like the traps, but that's just my personal preference. Mole Exit is one that is a granular type product. These are mostly castor-based oil from the castor plant, the castor bean plant. So this is kind of a natural repellent. They don't like the smell of castor oil. There's a lot of them out there. Mole Max is one put out by Bonide. Tomcat even has a spray that you spray around. I've used the mole exit at my place, and I found it worked for about a week or two until you started getting a lot of rain, and immediately after you get a lot of rains, it kind of washes the effectiveness away, and you have to reapply. And it's not a cheap product either. So it's just take that into mind. I think it's more of a short-term solution.
I got a little 2-acre lot down in Union, and the neighbors and I, we always have a contest each year. Now, last year I got 14 moles. This year I've only gotten 6, but I got woods on 2 sides.
Right, yeah.
I just got to learn to live with them.
Yeah, that's the same, kind of the same predicament I'm in. I have an acre and a half, and I have a horse pasture on one side, and the other sides are surrounded by woods. So yeah, they're constantly coming out. They're that's what they do. They aerate the soil in a lot of forested areas. So that's where they're at. They're going to come in. But if there's a lot of earthworms and you take good care of your lawn, and that's where a lot of earthworms are, that's where they want to go. Another thing we'll note, and David kind of touched on that too, the grubs. A lot of people say, well, just use grub control products like Grub X and things like that, and eliminate the grubs, and you'll eliminate your moles. Well, they feed on earthworms, they feed on mole crickets, they feed on all kinds of insects that are underground insects. So different larvae of different other types of insects that habitate the ground. So if you eliminate all the grubs using Grub X, you're probably still not going to totally get rid of them. It may help to a certain extent, but you're probably still going to have a lot of them in your lawn. Then there's fumigation. So this is one, and I've tried this too. I've tried the Giant Destroyer also. These make me kind of nervous just because they are a fumigant. They're a toxin. You don't want to inhale them. You don't want anybody else to inhale them. So if you're going to use these, use them with caution. I mean, honestly, you have to find a really active run, a new run, and almost have to see the activity and put one of these in there and get, and make sure it's going to go to where the mole is at that present time. Otherwise, it could just dissipate in the soil and you're not really going to kill that mole. I mean, if he's moved to a different run and he's kind of backspaced and sealed up that a little bit, it's not going to get to him anyway. So, I mean, if it's really close, you may have luck with it. I never had any luck with these, but I mean, a lot of times these are recommended. Maybe they work better. I know a lot of times they'll say for gophers, pocket gophers and things like that, which we usually don't have those around this area, but maybe they work better for those type of rodents. But with moles, I don't see a whole lot of advantage to them. Plus, they're just kind of dangerous, honestly. Yeah. I went over before. Look for the active run, and then set your traps and check them. The more you check them, the better off. If you go out there and set a trap, once a week and go back at the end of the week and check it, you're probably not going to have a whole lot of luck. You just got to look for the most activity. You got to find out where they're active and just keep setting those traps back in those areas. I think that's the most thing. And there's a lot of people. I have people call and say, "Well, just get you a lawn chair and a shovel or a pitchfork and sit there and wait for them." Like, that's a good idea, and I've happened to catch them before and got them with the shovel, but that takes a lot of time. If you got the extra time and you want to sit out there with a cold drink or something and wait on them, more power to you. But I mean, I don't have time to do that, but a lot of people, do, so that's the fact. Just if you're doing that, just be very still because they do feel vibration close by.
Maybe step down in one section of it, and that's where you put your trap. Any advice on how?
I've did it both ways. I kind of, a lot of times I'll step down the whole run area. I don't know if it makes that much difference. Sometimes I've not stepped down at all, and I kind of see what direction they're going in, and I kind of wait for them to go a little bit out, and then I'll reset. I have luck like that.
They always said that if you step down on it and then you notice if they re-excavate it, then that's an active run.
That's where they're working.
And
but
that's what I have heard about it. But it's
it's by no means easy, and there's a lot of companies that specialize in mole mole eradication, and they're advertising. I've had people call that have spent up to $1,000 or more for these companies to come in. And basically they're trapping. They're good at what they do. They're professional trappers. So yeah, they're...
You know, I honestly think there's more moles than what, that small amount. I've seen at Spring Grove Cemetery in Cincinnati, there was a guy, and, in one day, he trapped 20 of them, and he had them all on display for people to look at. So they're out there.
Even if they have 2 to 3 young, all of those may not survive, due to other predation from other animals. But, that can build up over a period of time, so.
When's their reproductive season?
Excuse me?
When is their reproductive season?
It's usually, I believe, in the early spring, from what I've read on them. So, yeah.
What naturally does?
Jack Russell Terrier, and I thought, that's kind of their thing. They go after rodents and things. So I thought, I'll send her out there. Well, she wound up digging a hole and kept digging, and I was telling before, all I saw was her tail out the top, and she never did get the mole. So I thought, you're doing more damage than the mole's doing. So, yeah. The next one we'll talk about is gray squirrels, and this is usually, most people have a problem with them around bird feeders and things like that. They'll get into the bird feeders and wreck your feeders and chew holes in. I know I've had blue bird houses out. They'll get up there and gnaw the hole big enough so they can make a nesting chamber inside the bluebird house. The only way to eliminate that is getting the bluebird houses and putting the metal little shield around so they can't gnaw onto that. I've had them pull that off before, so they're pretty destructive. They can enter buildings like attics and things through their eaves, so it's a good idea to check your eaves and your soffit areas on your house. Make sure there's no way they can get up in there. They will get into your attic and make a mess. They've been known to chew into electrical wires and cause damage like that. Yeah, they can be a nuisance, and usually, the most calls I get, like I said, is people just frustrated, like they're bird enthusiasts and they want to feed the birds, and they have the squirrels just wrecking it, consistently. This shows some damage here, how they can get into a house. Like I was saying about the bluebird house, how they gnaw that hole out so they can fit in there. Actually, there are bird feeder. They have baffles you can get that you can put underneath the feeder to stop them from coming up the pole, things like that. But they can get pretty adventurous, and they'll actually get on limbs. They'll jump over. A lot of times they can find ways around whatever you put. You can put metal wrappings around trees so they can't climb. A lot of times they'll find, these are some different ones, this little dome that kind of fits over. Prevents the damage from your feeder and stops them from getting in. So these are just a lot of different things they have out there that you can use. Some of them are pretty effective. A lot of times, if you have a lot of squirrels in your area, you almost have to live with the damage, really, and just wind up feeding the squirrels instead of the birds. There's different methods here. There's live traps you can use. This is a live type trap that you can use, and basically this is mine that I had for years, and you set the trap basically like this, and then when they step in here, it'll actually catch them like that. These come in a lot of different sizes. This is a smaller one that's usually for squirrels. There's a second size up that you can use for raccoons, possums, things like that. They even have a large one for coyotes I've seen now that they have, but I heard that coyotes are pretty smart as far as that goes, and a lot of times they're hard to catch. But
So once you've got the squirrel, what do you do with it?
well,
How do you get rid of it?
that's the thing to it. Kentucky Fish and Game they used to years ago say you could take them and release them places. They found that through studies that the animals that are relocated in different areas usually wind up not surviving anyway. They usually get picked on by other native ones to that area, and they wind up not surviving. So a lot of times they'll recommend just eliminating them, shooting them, or whatever. And it seems cruel, but that's a lot of times what they do. If you have somebody, for example, that's a hunter that enjoys squirrels, that's one thing you could do too, is also get somebody to hunt them.
Is there a,
Oh, sorry. You might want to try a product like this. This may have some, this is a deer and rabbit repellent, but it may work for that. It's a taste repellent. It's non-toxic. It's made out of egg solids and I think garlic, maybe cayenne pepper also. You might try something like this. It doesn't smell great, but yeah, that's the problem if it's going to be on a cushion. Products like this too. This is basically is a repellent, an area repellent, which has dried blood as the active ingredient in this. So this is another one that doesn't smell real great. So yeah, that would be a tough one to try to eliminate. But that's all I can think of is with some type of repellent spraying around the area, and hopefully that would be something that would stop them from coming into the area.
Have you heard anything about peppermint oil?
Peppermint oil, yeah, I think peppermint oil, it may be an ingredient. Let me see here. Now this has thyme oil. So there's a lot of different essential oils and things that you can use. I've heard peppermint, thyme, things like that they just don't like the smell of. Some of those may work. I don't know of any study that's been done on the effectiveness of those, but I mean, they're worth a try on some of those. And usually, I mean, 9 out of 10 times, what you have is a sapsucker. They will drill perfectly aligned holes in a tree, just almost, I mean, they look perfect. And that's usually what's causing it. And they get in there, and usually you'll see that damage late winter, that time frame. A lot of times when they're migrating through the area, when there's a larger population of them, of the sapsuckers, that's when they'll stop and they'll damage a lot of, they like smooth bark trees. I've had damaged on magnolias, for example, some fruit trees. I think apples, I've had them on apples trees. They seem to get in there and really, usually it doesn't damage the tree unless there's an extensive amount of damage. A lot of times I've had luck keeping them away simply with just using these pie pans. And I usually hang these around where they're doing the damage. It's enough, the motion and the reflectiveness will kind of stop them. I mean, you can use smaller ones too. I've had good luck with that with the sapsuckers and a few other birds.
what possesses those rascals from getting in the aluminum gutter and sitting there?
They will. I've had them do thump up on my my house too. They get on my ridge vent and they get up there and start thumping. And I had one just the other day, and actually, you know, they don't do any damage. They're not gonna. They may dent aluminum a little bit, but they usually don't do any damage. They're kind of quirky little birds, and sometimes they do things like that. A lot of times they sound, what they call sound, when they're during mating season. A lot of times they may be doing that to sound off because they do it on trees. So maybe they think they get a little bit better, you know, acoustics by doing it on a metal or something like that. So yeah, but that's common that they will do that. These are some examples of woodpecker damage. They'll get in and they'll actually do damage to siding, especially if you have carpenter bees that have got into your siding. They will get in and they'll just excavate and chip out the whole areas where the carpenter bee larvae are inside the wood. They'll do it, like this is the yellow belly sapsucker. I was telling you that damage before, usually on the barks of trees. And then the pileated woodpecker, you can see it does a lot of damage. I had a lady call, it's been a couple years ago, and sent me photos, and she says, she thought it was a bear or something that was doing this to some of these maple trees in the area, and that's what it wound up being. But if you're not familiar with that woodpecker, the pileated, it's basically, that's Woody Woodpecker, what the cartoon character was taken off of. It's a big, large, about the size of a large crow, has the red head with a little point on it, and they can do a lot of damage. I had one a few years ago at our house. It was visiting our suet feeder during the wintertime. They're really neat looking. They're not real common. They're kind of neat birds to watch, but yeah, they occasionally do damage. For the most part, you don't see that real common damage like that, but it can occur. So prevention and control for these, exclusion, so trying to, put something there to stop them is visual repellents. Kind of went over that. Something that's going to kind of scare them off. Noise repellents. So there are they sell these products called bird bangers and things like that will actually make noise and get rid of these or try to get rid of them. They have these spikes that you can put up like on the eaves of houses where a lot of pigeons and things like that would roost. That'll work. You can also use, if you're having problems in your orchard or your vineyard, they have bags that you can actually put around your fruit to try to protect those from bird damage. So there's a lot of different ways to protect. Some of these are a little bit more effective than others. There's netting. This is pretty effective. So if you have say a fruit tree, I know several years back I had a plum tree that was loaded and I was just waiting for them to ripen up and it was just bending over with plums and I thought, boy, I'm going to get a bunch off this. And they weren't quite ripe, so I waited a couple days, went back out there. The limbs were broke. It was totally cleaned up. So, I mean, if I would have put some kind of netting on there, evidently a raccoon or something got up there and cleaned it up. But putting this netting on your fruit trees, when the fruit's on, can save you from having something getting the harvest before you do. And here's some more examples I just put on here. These types of netting and also the spikes that you can put. I know Bob, he was telling us some examples of somebody that put up the spikes actually, and those birds actually just build a nest right on top of the spikes. So sometimes they kind of humor us a little bit, but reflective tape, you can buy this Mylar tape that you can kind of cut in strips and hang that up. That can help. The yard pinwheel spinners, sometimes those can help also. And these are the noise repellents I was talking about. And they actually, where you have really serious bird problems, people that may have orchards or something like that, commercial, they will actually have these cannons that go off that every so many minutes to keep the birds away. These bird bangers, that's more of a homeowner product that they do sell. You can sometimes find these. I think I saw some of these actually at Menards the other day. They had some of these different ones. At the Nature Center Gardens. Yes. And there are particular repellents just for wild turkey. I've not had turkeys doing much damage on my place, but he had a lot of damage this year with new transplants and things like that.
They picked off the leaves of my fall transplants, broccoli, cabbage, cauliflowers. When they were really young, they would, and Kevin, who manages that, he said that he saw at least 40 of them come into the Nature Center plot. And when the transplants were really young, the turkeys came and they would peck at the leaves. And because there was no root system established at that, they pulled the whole plant out. And so, and I had to replant those about, 40 or 50 times.
Yeah, several times.
It seemed like. and the bad thing was, I wasn't real careful about my transplants, and we ended up with a whole lot of collards. And so if you know of anybody who wants collard greens, I'm the person to see.
Just because they have these extensive tunnels, and they can block those off and use them and have pretty good luck with that. A lot of professional trapping companies will use that. Fumigation is another one that kind of makes me nervous for the homeowner, just because safety-wise. Here's some different traps, like I said before, the live trap. There's also those conibear traps. David said he had some experience. They said those are pretty humane as far as the conibear.
Have you used those, Bob?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're for bigger animals, and it's the force behind that snap is amazing, and it'll snap the neck of anything. But you have to be really careful in a neighborhood or a urban situation with not getting somebody's cat or dog in it. It's and same way with the steel, the leg hold traps. Those are another one you gotta be careful with. If
if you have domesticated animals in the
And the
area.
trouble with that, when you catch a groundhog in it, he can dig himself in, because you ain't killed him, you just got his 1 foot.
Right,
And they can do a lot of damage.
just by doing that. Yeah, that's true. That's why, in my experience, using the live trap. The eastern cottontail, the cottontail rabbit, so this one is another one that's common. Usually, I know David was talking about this, he hasn't seen a whole lot of rabbit damage, or rabbits for that matter, in his area. I know I don't either, but I think the coyote population where I live keeps them in check.
They do not like fescue, which is the predominant grass in Kentucky, and it's a really coarse grass, and they can't digest it. And I think also there's just so many predators now that I've talked to rabbit hunters, Bob, that just are not seeing the populations of rabbits anymore.
So, yeah. So
I
this,
think your hawks and your owls is playing a big
yeah,
part of that.
they probably get a lot of them also, yeah.
How about feral cats?
Yeah.
Yeah, especially on the young ones, yeah. Yeah, it's something that occasionally you do see damage, and they'll do damage to ornamentals, and they'll chew on the bottom of fruit trees in particular sometimes. A lot of times if you have a lot of areas it has a lot of thick brush or brush piles, that's a magnet to rabbits. They love those areas. That's where they'll nest. So if you have any areas like that, you might want to try to eliminate those if you have rabbit issues. That can help. And they also have up to 4 litters a year, so they're very prolific. So they can, but the reason for that is they usually get, predators are pretty hard on them. So that's why I think that they have so many young a year. They will occasionally bother a lot of vegetables, peas and beans and things like that. Of course, carrots, I guess. But they will damage ornamentals, and they will chew the bark, particularly during the winter or early spring, on maples and things like that, willow. And you can look at the damage here. You can see at the bottom. I have an example here of what rabbit damage usually looks like on a tree. And they usually do this when there's snow cover. A lot of times they'll get out and do this chewing on the bark. And then what a vole does. A vole is lower. It's right around the base or the top crown of the plant there where it goes into the ground. And so managing damage with that, a lot of times this is a good repellent, and I think David, he's used this for deer and rabbit, the liquid fence. It's a good product also. I touched on that before. It's non-toxic, so you can spray that on just about anything, but it has a horrible smell. That's the only bad thing about it. And it's also a taste repellent for them. And so here's some, as I mentioned here, there's contact and area. So these are more contact repellents and taste repellents. This would be an area type, this plant skid, which this is basically the active ingredient in this is blood, dried blood. So that's kind of just, you sprinkle that around, and they don't like the scent of it, and it'll kind of keep them away. So that was, I just covered that. One thing, and I touched on this also before, the toxicants. I don't like using them just because they could get into a domesticated animal or a hawk or an owl or something like that. So I steer away from those type products personally. And then there's mechanical control. So there's all types of different control as far as fencing, different things like that. I brought this deer fencing in to kind of show you. You can buy this in rolls. Usually at Lowe's, Home Depot carries these. There's also the construction type, which is the bright orange. This one because it looks a little bit better in the landscape, it's because it's green. But you can put this around a lot of your trees, put a few stakes in. You can buy these at your farm supply store and keep a lot of animals from getting at the trunks of the trees. And that comes in handy during fall when the deer start getting out there and start rubbing. They can do a lot of damage quick. I usually start trying to protect all my stuff in September. If I have any smaller, another one of our favorites, the white-tailed deer. So Deer have moved into a lot of residential areas, neighborhoods. I mean, I can go to my parents' house in Erlanger, and I'll have to stop a lot of times so I don't hit a deer crossing the road. And I mean, they're right in the middle of town. So, I mean, and with a lot of projects like the Arrow out here, Parkway, where the Amazon project is, a lot of the deer and the animals there have been relocated. So I think a lot of them, I got a couple calls from people over in that trailer park over there that were getting a lot of animals coming into that area just because they didn't have anywhere else to go. When food is scarce, they'll feed on just about anything. So when you see these lists, and I'll have some plants on here I'm going to show you later, are supposed to be deer-resistant plants. Just take that with a grain of salt. That normally these are plants that deer won't bother, but in times of famine, and particularly in the wintertime, when there's not a lot to browse, or there's a lot of snow cover, ice cover on the ground, they'll eat a lot of different things. I know the year, I think it was 2014, when we had what they called the polar vortex, and we had that snow and that ice that built up on the ground for an extended period, it didn't melt off. They had a lot of damage at the Arboretum on a lot of different plants that they never bothered before. Same way with my landscape. They were in there eating, hollies that they never, ever touched before. And so that's just something to note. They will bother plants that are supposedly resistant. So here's a few plants that if you have high deer population that you probably don't want to plant. And one would be the taxus, which is the yew, the Japanese yew, euonymus, any kind of, from the burning bush to the winter creeper types. Rhododendron, they're hard on rhododendron. Arborvitae, you can see the damage on arborvitae, and that happened to my neighbor. He had a whole row of arborvitae, and you can still see they've totally not recovered this many years later, but they ate just as high as they could reach all the way up on his arborvitae screen. Oak leaf hydrangea, they will eat. White pine, they'll eat that, and they'll also rub young white pine really bad. I've tried to grow white pine several times with small seedlings, and they always wind up getting to them, it seems like. No. Recognizing the damage from deer, from rabbit. Usually when a deer browses, you'll get this almost like a tear look to the branch, almost like a chisel cut if it's a rabbit. So that's how you can tell. And then, of course, the tracks, you can also tell. And I put some wildlife cards up there that shows different tracks of different animals. So if you want to take one of those, good to identify them either in wet soil or snow during the winter. And then deer rubs, we went over deer rubs before a little bit. Using the fencing is probably the best thing. Another thing I do, I was fortunate to get a bunch of tobacco sticks from my uncle after he quit raising tobacco down in Grant County. And I'll take tobacco sticks and put them out at an angle all the way around the perimeter of a lot of my smaller trees, and that's enough to kind of keep them out. And I noticed they've been doing that at the Arboretum too. They've been using bamboo. They got a lot of bamboo out there, so they use bamboo spikes out that way. And that kind of just stops them from getting up there. I think they get close, and maybe their antlers touch those, and they don't like it, and they usually steer away from them.
Have you heard, I heard a rumor about concrete.
These are different products. This one's a taste repellent, similar to liquid fence. It's chew knot. It's got the active ingredients thiram, I think.
Thiram is a fungicide, and it's a labeled fungicide, and somebody figured out that it had a terrible taste to it. And there's actually an old recommendation that you can take we used to, when I consulted with an orchard, we would have 5-gallon buckets of latex paint, and we would buy those, we would mix thiram in it, and then we would dilute it with water, and we would paint the trunks of our apple trees with that mixture, and the deer would not browse on it, rabbits would not browse on it, and the voles would not browse on it, but not really practical for your landscape plants. Mm-hmm. It does turn them white, yeah. But it worked for those.
Yeah, that's one of the active ingredients that, yeah, like you said, it was originally a fungicide, and then they found out that it was pretty effective for deer repellent. There's other ones. This one has like ammonium salts and fatty acids. So this is another brand, Hinder. So there are a lot of these different products out there. This one, I put this one in there too because this one doesn't smell quite as bad. Local nursery or farm store, you'll see a lot of these different products. There's scent repellents that you can actually hang on the plants. I think Sarah from Campbell County was talking about one that she was using and she's had pretty good luck with. Usually come in little sacks and you hang those around. A lot of people use human hair from barbershops and they did this, and I've heard mixed results on that. It may work for a little while, but things like that. Like I said, is a scent and taste repellent is what the liquid fence is, so it works both ways. It's got a mixture of different oils in it. And then we go to fencing for deers. This is an effective, and this comes out of Kentucky's publication, University of Kentucky, for effective deer fencing. But honestly, I wouldn't want that in my yard just because it doesn't look good. If you have a big area, an orchard or something like that, they're expensive to build, but a fence like this would probably be pretty effective and something that you would have to do to keep them off your fruit or vineyard or whatever. But this is one, it's basically on a slant, so they can't jump it, supposedly. And that's just a different type of fencing. There's another method here, and I used this before and had pretty good luck with it for a while until they just kept jumping, and finally they just jumped over top of it. But it worked probably for a year, probably a little over a year. But it's the one where you actually use an electric fence. I used a solar-powered energizer that went and then hooked it up and put these, I used the fence post here, the electric fence post, and run that. And then you put pieces of tape, masking tape, or something like that, and then smear peanut butter on them. What it does is they'll go up, put it about 30 inches off the ground or so. They'll go up and kind of smell that peanut butter, go to lick it, and they'll get that nose full of electric, and they'll usually back off, and they don't like that electric. So that worked for quite a while for me, but eventually, like I said, they would just get at my garden, which was on the other side of this, by jumping over top of it. Here's some different fencing techniques, and this one is I've seen these made out of rebar that you actually drive in, and it has these pieces of welded rebar that come out at different angles that keep them from rubbing. That's one, and of course we went over the fencing already. These are something that's a little bit more popular. I have one of my friends that lives over here in Union. He's had problems with deer getting in his garden. He's a small boxed vegetable garden. And he's used one of these this year, and he's had pretty good luck with it. It's a motion-censored sprinkler. So it goes off and sprays them. So I don't know how long it would be effective for, but he's had good luck with it this year. So that's something that's more new. These are deer-resistant plants, so we'll kind of go over these real quick, and just in case, if you've had problem with deer and you've tried everything and you're ready to pull your hair out, these are some of the plants that you can use. But like I noted before, if the pressure's really high and they don't have much to browse on, they may occasionally bother these, but these are some. Barberry, Japanese barberry, which is a thorny. If you know anything about barberries, that's something, it's a common ornamental that you'll see. They usually don't bother these too much. They don't like to browse under those thorns. Butterfly bush is another one. For some reason, they don't seem to like it. I don't know if it's the taste of the foliage. Boxwood. I have a lot of boxwoods in my garden, and I found I started collecting boxwoods after I started having deer damage because they were decimating everything else. So I thought, what kind of plant can I plant that they won't bother? Boxwood has natural alkaloids or poisons in the foliage. They don't like it. They don't like the taste of it. And I've seen occasionally where they'll barely nip at it a little bit, and that's it. And I've got them all over my yard, and they'll never touch them. So beauty berry is another one they don't like. Forsythia For the most part, they don't bother forsythia. Rose of Sharon, which is an old-fashioned type plant that a lot of people have, one that's been around. For the most part, pretty resistant. Here's some trees that were resistant. When I say resistant, that is to browsing, not to rubbing. So these still would have to be protected when they're young for rubbing. Red maple, they don't tend to bother that. Serviceberry. American holly, just because of the prickly. I got several American holly in my yard. They never seem to bother them. And magnolia, they don't bother. Norway spruce, very seldom do they browse on Norway spruce. Japanese tree lilac is another one to consider, nice ornamental with the white flowers. And then we had deer-resistant perennials. Columbine, you don't seem to bother columbine or browse it down too bad. Baptisia, they don't bother this too much. Good flowering perennial that we use a lot. Dianthus, this one's fire witch, which we see a lot that the landscapers use in this area. Pretty good deer resistance also. Lenten rose, I have a lot of Lenten roses in my garden. They've never bothered them at all, never touched them. So that's a good one. Maiden grass, if you ever felt maiden grass, the actual blade is has almost like a barb to it. They don't like that, evidently don't like to graze on that. Annuals, which a lot of people have problems with annuals and deer. Cleome is the spider flower. It's kind of got a smell to it and possibly a taste that they don't like. Dusty Miller is another one. I don't know if it's that dusty substance on the foliage that they don't like. Nasturtium is one which they don't eat, which is kind of odd because the flowers are edible to humans, but the deer don't like it. Does have a peppery taste to it, so maybe that has something to do with it. Any kind of sage or salvia, they normally don't bother. And bulbs, a lot of people have problems with tulips. So I've had a lot of calls with people that say, my tulips are come up, they're in bud, they look great. All of a sudden something came through and ate every bud off the top, never even reached the bloom stage. So usually it's deer. Grape hyacinth, that's one to use. It's pretty deer resistant. Daffodils, that's the only bulb that I will plant because they won't bother it. And I have a lot of deer pressure. So you want to see what's doing the damage. A lot of times you don't see what the damage is. So, a lot of times it happens after dark or when you're at work or whatever. So a lot of times you may not know what's doing the damage. So that's when I decided to invest in a deer camera or a game camera, as you would call them, and set that up and see what I would find. So I got some outtakes from my game camera here so you can see. This is after I fertilized one of my magnolia trees, and there you can see there's 2 raccoons going around each place where I put that fertilizer around the drip line, and they like the smell of that. I use organic Epsoma type fertilizers, which have that strong smell, which they must like, and they were in there digging, and you could see where they dug it all out. So that's what happened that night. Here's our friend the coyote decided to show up one night, and I actually got a video of them, 2 of them chasing each other around my backyard. But there were no deer there that night. So here's a couple deer grazing under. I have 2 heirloom apple trees in the back, and this was mainly when they were dropping a lot, and they were getting them as fast as I could. I couldn't even hardly pick as many of the apples up. They were getting so many of them. So that's why I was setting that up, checking them out. And there was routinely every night at least 2 to 3, sometimes 5 deer there every night, cleaning up the apples that were falling. And I still did get quite a few apples off of it that they didn't get, but they were getting everything that hit the ground and what they could reach. This guy, I like this picture because he looks like he's laughing at me. He came right up, and the camera was mounted on the trunk of the apple tree, so he was right up there under there chomping on one when I caught him. And in this one I liked a lot. I said, you ever feel like somebody's watching you? So that's a close-up and personal one. I sent an email of this one to my daughter off at college, and she said, that's creepy. So it kind of freaked her out. But that just kind of shows you what's going on in your yard at night. And a lot of times, I mean, this was a relatively inexpensive game camera. It was less than $100, and they do a good job, and you kind of have fun with them and just see what you can find in your yard. Any questions now or anything?
You didn't touch on coyotes.
I didn't touch on what?
Coyotes.
Coyotes. I did have a publication up here with coyotes, and mainly with that, there's not a whole lot you can do besides, you can use some of these repellents and try those, but a lot of times those don't even work. A lot of times you have to call the Fish and Game, and I have a publication up there that'll tell you different ways that you can contact them that may help with that.
Got a friend of mine that's got a beaver problem.
Beaver, same way. That was one I think I would call actually on the beaver, because I did see there was when I was looking at the Fish and Game, they did come up with a supplement of a statute or something they put out where you were allowed to take those in certain areas, but I would definitely call about beaver, because I know they do a lot of damage. They can damage dams and dam up creeks and things like that, and
And
ponds.
you cannot move them alive.
Yeah,
When you catch them, you gotta kill them on sight.
yeah. So, but yeah, that would be one. A lot of these animals, if you're not sure about, like I said, I got that up there, call the number, call your conservation, and make sure you're doing the right thing.
And beaver has got a season that you can trap them or kill them. But if they're doing damage, you can.
Yeah, that's the same way with, there's a lot. I've had several people call and say, even if you're a farmer and you have crop damage from deer, they can give you special permits, and they even give you shooter permits where you can designate certain people that can actually come in there and shoot out of season. But you've got to be able to prove that they're eating your crop and damaging your crop to do that. So those questions always go to the conservation.
Blackbirds kill one of our calves one time, and you're not allowed to shoot them either, but it's like, if they're killing your livestock, it's like.
What's it, blackbird?
These blackbirds, these.
Crows?
No, they're like vultures. They were.
Oh, okay, turkey
Yeah.
buzzards or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's possible if the calf was weakened or something.
And poke out his eyes. And
Yeah.
That's been a problem with
Yeah.
newly born calves. It's,
Yeah, before they're real strong, they
Yeah.
probably,
They
yeah.
introduced those birds into this area, so that maybe the deer population.
It says turkey vultures,
yeah,
not the regular
Right.
buzzards.
It's the black vulture.
Black, there's turkey buzzard and
That
black
turkey
balls.
buzzard is the one we've had for a year.
That's been
Something's gotta be dead for 3 or 4 days.
before it bothers it.
A black vulture will kill a live calf, lamb.
Yeah. Our ag agent, Michelle, knows if you have any questions about that, you may want to contact Michelle Simon regarding that. Because, yeah, I know that, like he said, the black vulture is different than the regular turkey buzzard or turkey vulture.
Have you had any feedback? I read an article that deterrent for both rabbits and deer was coyote urine.
Coyote urine?
Yes.
I was going to try some of that. Actually, it's for sale. You can buy coyote urine, wolf urine. Yeah, so
Buy it at Tractor Supply.
yeah, you can buy it at different farm supply places. Rural King, I know, down in Georgetown has it. I shop down there a lot. I went to buy some and because I was going to try it, because I was wanting to try it for this kind of, and they were always out of it. So maybe it does work, because they never had it when I went down there.
The biggest use of it is for the trappers. When they make a set, they spray it to try to kill the human
Scent,
scent.
right.
And make the other cow or fox think there's been another one here.
Before
and
me.
he's looking to see what
Exactly.
he had left.
Yeah, definitely. So,
I live right in the center of 11 acres, and we have woods all around us. And one of the things that I'm a big dog lover, and I have, well, now I have 5. And their presence just on my property, we have a invisible fence over the entire 11 acres, so they have the whole thing to go. And they really have kept a lot of problems. I still get deer coming through, and the dogs will chase the deer, but as soon as they get near that fence, they will stop because they can't stand that shock that they get. It's very humane and it works. And I also have tons of hickory trees on my property, and we have squirrels everywhere, but I don't have them on my back patio because of as soon as the dogs see them, they go after them. And I actually have a rescue dog that somehow he can catch them, and I'm amazed because usually, you know, dog can't catch a squirrel, but. I don't know if dogs are practical for everybody, but they've worked for me for keeping a lot of things out. And I remember having, there used to be a wildlife specialist at UK, and we would talk about different things, and he was talking about coyotes, and he said to me, he goes, well, you know what the major part of a coyote in an urban area, what its diet consists of? And I said, no. He goes, domestic cat. And so, you know, they can, and that's why a lot of people now keep their cats inside.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is a problem, definitely. Any more questions?
Is there a repellent for the chipmunks?
I think I had,
I have, but it's just,
yeah, that's the, but yeah, I just kind of went over that you can live trap them or you can use the rat.
I had that problem too, and flowers were expensive this year.
Right, it's frustrating when you spend that money on a flat of annuals and have them
Crows can be
dug.
really devastating on sweet corn when it just comes up, because they'll pull the sweet corn little seedling out of the ground and eat the kernel that's still on there. And they'll go through an entire field. And just
Yeah,
really
they're real rough on that.
nasty.
They will move bulbs.
Yeah,
Literally daffodil bulbs, whatever. I've got native ladies growing in a front flower bed. I never planted them there.
And you-
And I can only think that a chipmunk dug up the bulb, transplanted it, and that was it.
that's possible, yeah.
Because, you know, we have a big cluster of them now, but
Mhm.
we never had them there.
Yeah.
And we can only think that this chipmunk, or family of chipmunks that live under my house.
Yeah.
I swear one day I'm going to walk on my front path and it's going to collapse because there's no dirt under it.
Yeah,
Because the chipmunks go from the front lawn, under a flower pot, there's a hole, under the flower pot, under the path, into the foundations down house.
so they got a whole trail system under there probably. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
Okay, anything else?
Huh?
You're talking about your coyote. Illinois has done a study on them. They found the highest concentration of coyotes per mile, or however you want to figure it. Chicago.
Chicago, yeah. Urban areas, yeah.
They had a video of one of them actually getting on the subway and sitting, and then when on the subway, came to another stop and got off. I mean, you know, that's amazing.
They had that real
Yeah.
quick.
Anybody have problems with
Is a lot of times they'll get into, I had sacks of bird seed in my garage and they got
they
into
look
them.
like a small mole?
Yeah,
Right,
I have like hundreds.
really.
yeah. They only, trapping with a regular mouse trap or some of those small little live traps. Have you ever seen those for mice? Those might work.
Well, I have a cat that's
Yeah.
now, and
But yeah, occasionally you do have shrew
40 of them.
problems. I had getting in my garage one year, yeah.
They eat, I mean, they love hostas,
Yeah.
Yeah.
roots of hostas and lily bulbs. But I don't know if there's, why they're attracted to my yard.
You may use maybe one of these repellents like the plant skid or something like that and see if that'll keep them and sprinkle. And even, this product is, majority of this is liquid, is granular or dried blood. And you can buy blood meal too, and it's a good nitrogen fertilizer, so you can spray, spread that around your plants, fertilize them, and possibly keep the different, shrews or mice or whatever away from them too. So that's a good alternative to use. You might want to try that. Yeah.
Well, they burrow.
Yeah, they will burrow a little bit under the ground. You had a question also?
I've noticed in my yard, especially along where the landscape bed is, I find a lot of holes. Probably the largest is about the size of a golf ball. I don't know is that, I'm afraid you're gonna say snakes, which I'm absolutely terrified of.
No, usually snakes don't. Could be chipmunk.
Snakes will go down like a chipmunk hole or a mouse hole or something, or even moles.
Yeah.
But the only reason they're going into that is to find prey. So they won't,
Yeah.
they don't excavate. Snakes don't excavate.
Yeah,
But I've had that, and I don't, it's too big for a night crawler. They can do, the night crawlers will do that. I don't know. We'd have to see it and really kind of.
Yeah, I mean, first thing comes to mind would be chipmunk,
Yeah.
vole, or maybe a shrew even. Yeah,
There's a shrew look like.
yeah.
Like, it looks
Shrews are smaller in size, so it could be that. Yeah.
they're about that big, but they have that gray fur.
If you have snakes, like black snakes, is that a good thing?
It is, and it really bothers me because everybody who brings in a snake to our office, they've already killed it, and then they want to tell me that it's a copperhead and very rarely, I don't know that I have ever had somebody bring me a poisonous snake in all the years I've been doing this job. They always bring me dead ones that they've killed because they were sure it was a rattler snake or something, and they never are. And they're really, when I come upon them, they scare me too, but the last thing you should do is kill them. They're really good. They're very good about, doing things. There was a...
Doing things besides scaring me, like what's doing?
Yeah, they really are good at
They eat chipmunks?
yeah, and they're amazing how they can find nests and, of mice and things like that, and they'll go after them. There was a greenhouse in southern part of Tennessee, and she came up and did a program for us one time, and she talked about how they had this snake, black rat snake, in the greenhouse. And she said, all the employees said, you need to let me kill that snake. And she said, don't kill that snake. It's taking care of some of the others, but she said, it's not good for customers. And so they had an intercom, and they would always have a Slimmy alert. And Slimmy was the name of the snake. And when they saw it, somebody had to go and get the snake and move it to another part. And she had this southern accent. She made this, she said, how would you like it if God had made you, that everybody hated you and wanted to kill you, and he didn't give you any arms or legs? So they just leave them alone.
Yeah. Yeah, I had experience one time we have a shed, and I was going up, it's got a loft in it, so I'm going up the ladder to the loft and come face to face with the snake. Black snake looking me right in the face. So I just stopped, and I knew my wife would have a heart attack because she goes out there, we have stuff stored up there. So I just grabbed him and took him, and I didn't want to kill him, so I took him outside and I put him back under the shed. So eventually I'm sure he made it back in there. But we did have mice in our shed, and that's why he was in there. So, they're good to have around. Yeah.
You gotta remember, if you got chipmunks or any of your problem, you can catch them today, but the food and shelter is there, and there'll be a new batch will replace
Right.
it.
Yeah.
And, taking away their food source and sanitation is critical on all those things. It really is.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
All right,
for
thanks,
coming.
everyone.
Joe did that program.
Yeah. Thank you.